My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation. He is my stronghold, my refuge and my Saviour. From violent people, you save me.
Mr. Abbott would like to share your grievances and the grievances of your community and express interest in being here today. So we thank you. Please welcome Mr. Abbott to the stage.
Your Grace Bishop Cyril, my distinguished parliamentary colleagues, Chris Bowen, Philip Ruddock, Scott Morrison, Craig Kelly, Senator Conchetta Fioravanti-Wells, my distinguished state parliamentary colleagues, the Reverend Fred Nile, David Clark, members of the clergy, above all else, ladies and gentlemen, let me say what an honour it is to stand before you today and share your grief at what has happened to your brothers in Egypt, and to speak out loud and clear and strong for the universal decencies of that. I had a mentor in my school days, a Jesuit priest, who said to me constantly, pray as if everything depended upon God, but work as if everything depended upon you. And I want to say to all of you that you are working so hard today, first of all, to speak out on behalf of the great Coptic community of Australia. Show solidarity with the Coptic community of Egypt, the oldest and largest Christian community of the Middle East. I do want to pay tribute to all of you for the good work that the Coptic community has done in this country. Your community has been marked by commitment to hard work and family values. And I want to say, as the leader of the political party which most represents small business in this country, how pleased I am at the contribution that the Copts of Australia have made to small business. But most of all, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you that it is an outrage what has happened to your community. It is an outrage which should cry out to heaven for rectification. And I want to say to you that when we saw the protests in Egypt, when we saw the protests in the other countries of the Middle East, we all thought that perhaps for the first time in generations, democracy and human rights might be coming to that troubled part of the world. But a democracy which crushes people is no democracy. And let us hope that what happened just a few Sundays ago in Egypt does not foreshadow the shape of any democracy that might take place in that country. Democracy means respect for minorities. It does not just mean enforcing the will of majorities. A democracy must be judged not by how effectively it implements the will of the majority, but how effectively it protects the rights of the minority. I am very proud to lead a political party which has a strong record of commitment to human rights right around the world, and a strong record in giving sanctuary to people who need our protection. As most of you would know, when he was the Immigration Minister, Philip Ruddock implemented a program of protection for Copts who needed to come to this country. We've done it in the past. we can do it again in the future. To you, my fellow Australians, may the people of Egypt come to see the tragedy the other week, not just as a crime against Christians, but as a crime against Islam too. Ladies and gentlemen, no true religion can contemplate this kind of horror. Thanks very much.
It is so great to be here amongst you again, once again today, amongst so many great Australians. Here they all are as I look out on this crowd today, Australians all coming together to celebrate something we all hold very much in common, and that is a passion for liberty and a passion for freedom of religion. And it's great to share that today with my parliamentary colleagues. Of course, the Leader of the Opposition, Tony Abbott, whom you just heard, and of course the Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, Chris Bowen, who I also acknowledge, together with Philip Ruddock, Senator Fierravanti-Wells, and my many other parliamentary colleagues are here today, but I particularly want to acknowledge Craig Kelly, a fellow member of the Shire, and we want together to recognise the many Copts that are part of our southern Sydney community and make such a tremendous contribution. I also want to thank the Reverend Fred Nile for being here today amongst you at this time of great personal grief for him, and to honour the memory of his dear wife Elaine, and I'd ask you to do that as well with me. What has happened in Egypt is an abomination, and it, as Tony said, cries out to heaven. But what we heard today from Bishop Cyril, who I most of all want to acknowledge, was a message of grace today. It was a message of love. It was a message of Christian charity. It was a message inspired by great faith. And as I look out on this great crowd of Australians today, I see a great community of faith. And I know that that faith will uphold and keep you together, and it's the same faith that will uphold and keep your community together as it faces great trial and tribulation in Egypt. As Tony mentioned, under Philip Ruddock and subsequent ministers, Minister Andrews, we had a program in government, and I want to acknowledge the extension and program that the Minister has already announced for those who are already here on visas. But I also want to encourage the government to take up the program that was in place previously, which at our previous rally I gave a commitment that we would restore that program under our humanitarian program to provide places for those Copts suffering persecution in Egypt, and renew that call, which I'm sure could be done in a spirit of great bipartisanship. But today, friends and fellow Australians, my prayers personally and those of my family are for you and your families. We celebrate a great country here, the freedoms that we all share, and it is our prayer that those freedoms will also be seen in Egypt, and where this Arab Spring, we hope, will go to a great summer and not retard back into another desperate winter. Thank you so much for having me here today.
My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation. He is my stronghold, my refuge and my Saviour. From violent people you save me.